everyone to Women of the Military Podcast Spotlight. This week we have Destinee Prete. I'm so excited to have her here. She and I connected via LinkedIn a long time ago, and she was on the podcast a long time ago, and I should have wrote down, but I was traveling this weekend and I'm still trying to figure out up from down. And then this week she's on the podcast again. Last time she talked about her dissertation, and this time we're talking about her experience in the military. And today we want to highlight the work she's doing with We Too Are Vets. So welcome to the show, Destinee.
Thanks for having me. Yeah, it has been quite a few years, hasn't it?
Yeah,
Brings
it
me
was.
back. It brings you back. It was before the coronavirus and all of that. So, yeah, we've known each other a while, and I appreciate you giving me the opportunity to come and chat about We Too Are Vets today. So, thanks for having me.
Yeah, no, I think that it's so important to have women veteran organizations. I actually saw in a post on, I think it was on Facebook today, someone was trying to start something for women veterans, and they're like, why do we only have organizations for women veterans? We don't have one just specifically for males. And I was like, I think you're missing the point. And you know, it's hard to find women. It's a lot of women struggle with identifying. So I think what you're doing is really important. And I think the more that we can highlight our stories and bring them so that we don't need, a separate organization. But right now we're a small minority and face a lot of challenges. And so there's lots and lots of reasons why we need to focus on women veterans.
Exactly. Not only that, the underserved population, they're even, underrepresented in the workforce. And, there's if women aren't coming into your workplaces and identifying as women veterans, you might want to ask yourself why, right? Maybe there are probably many women in your workforce that you don't even know are veterans. So it's just really a place like We Too Are Vets is a place to come and really understand that and what the implications for not only women veterans, but for organizations, universities, institutions, places where women veterans are or where they want to be and they're not sure how to get there. So we're just kind of serving as a place to showcase, leverage, and an organization that's really focused on trying to create opportunities for women to become their best self advocates as well.
Yeah, and there are a lot of different women veteran organizations, and some focus on military sexual trauma, some focus on community, and so you guys are focusing more on like using your expertise as like doing research and analysis and helping businesses. So can you talk a little bit about why you felt there was a need to create a nonprofit for women veterans when there's already, a handful of them out there?
Yeah, and that's like the perfect, segue into why I created this in the first place. There are a lot of organizations out there. I am definitely not trying to, be one of them, as well. But what I want to do is kind of create a collaborative environment. And I share resources. So if you go even onto, my social media for We Too Are Vets, you're going to see that I've been sharing other organizations, not just that are focused on women, but that are focused on the veteran population, that are focused on the women in general. Like, for example, the first, week of February was the Women's Heart Week, heart awareness. And so we shared information about women and heart awareness, and then also, different organizations in the veteran community that support that. And it was also kind of a call to action or a reminder to our women veterans that they should maybe use their VA, disability or apply for disability. So we're trying to kind of create opportunities for call to actions, share of resources. So that's the first thing I wanted to mention in regards to the, why are you doing this when there's a lot of organizations? The second part is you asked about the business situation. And, my background, I have my doctorate in industrial and organizational psychology, IO psychology. And so many people are like, what in the world is that, Destinee? And the easiest way to explain this to people is that it's really the study of behavior in the workplace. And so many of you, especially if you've been in the military, understand, have done some sort of what I call IOE things. But really, it's also a place where and a field where we use evidence and research to create interventions and different kinds of things to bring into a workplace. And so one of the, I thought, missing factors for women veterans in particular was there's not a lot of, organizations that focus on kind of educating, informing, showcasing women veterans, that can that are full of value, skill sets, non-technical skills, soft skills that can really translate and go into our workforce. So I wanted to kind of educate businesses and universities once again on those non-technical skills and those not those translatable skills for women veterans. And that's kind of where I was trying to make the connection there.
Yeah, I love how you're bringing in resources and then sharing those resources out with people so that I mean, you've shared about the podcast, you've shared about some of the stuff that I've been doing, which is really awesome because it's all about community, building each other up and sharing things and making sure that, other people can see the things that people are doing. And so that's why I'm excited about the work that you're doing because I mean, I think everything that you're doing is so important and I love that you're pushing your energy towards, like, women veterans as well.
I appreciate that, and it's funny, man, and a lot of other women veterans in particular might be able to relate to us too, because we are also, of many identities in the military, community. We are military spouses, we are advocates, we are business owners. The list goes on and on. And I think that's what's so important here is that we're not trying to, isolate these identities. We're trying to recognize that we do have multi-layered identities and that we do all kind of go through a shift of some sort, especially as we leave the service. And what we're trying to do is just create a camaraderie amongst women, amongst allies, and really just create this cohesive type of, movement forward. Because I know I experienced it, you might have, but I felt very isolated and alone, even though I was still part of the military community as a military spouse. I wasn't really sure where I fit in. I tried putting my feet in many different pools, to see where I fit the best. And it was awkward for me. It still kind of is sometimes, and so finding that really safe space. And I can tell you that when I get amongst other women veterans, like, I mean, it just, the energy, I feel it. Those are my people. And you're shaking your head. Yes. And me and you went to a women veterans, was it a gala for with Ginger Miller's organization, and that's another great organization to support. And we just felt like we were at home there, and so that's what I want other women to feel is like home.
Yeah. Yeah, and we're planning to go to Women Veteran Alliance's Unconference, which is in Las
Yes.
Vegas in September,
Yay.
and I went to that in 2021, and I was like, I really, admired Melissa, but I was like, "I don't really understand, like, unconference doesn't make any sense," and then I went and I was like, "This is the best conference ever, where do I sign up?" Like, I signed up to go at the conference even though it wasn't gonna happen again until 2023, like and so I was, like, fully on board and committed because I just think, like you said, women veterans all in the same place, and at that conference, there's, like I think there's over 200 women veterans at the conference, and so it's like, you have all these people that you can connect with instantly because you already have military service, and then you hear their stories, and you get to talk to them, you get to network and collaborate and, like, all these different things, and so and then they, like, spoil you and everything's tailored to women veterans, so it's really a fun conference to go to, so there's still openings, so if you wanna go, you can learn more about it by go to womenveteranalliance.org, and they are yeah, so I'm really excited about that,
I'm
but
excited too. I mean, it is Vegas, so that's also an add-on. I mean, lots to do, lots of shopping. I mean, I didn't say it, but I did. Lots of things to do, and once again, it's a place that we can all come together and talk about some of those things that maybe our male counterparts don't understand, or maybe they do. And or maybe we could talk about different tactics and strategies to explain it to others in our community. And I think that's what's really this is about. You mentioned that it is called We Tour Vet. It is about women veterans, but really it is to create a more inclusive environment. I know that sounds, it's like, well, it's called We Tour Vets. Yeah, whatever, Destiny. But the truth is until we recognize that there are those unique, complex challenges that women do face, then we're not really going to make any progress in really tackling those issues post transition. I don't know if people understand the demographics, but we are the fastest growing demographic in the veteran community, yet we're the most underserved and underrepresented once again in the workforce and institutions and things like that. So why is that way, right? Why is it that way? It's because of so many multi-layered factors, and we just need to get better at understanding those, acknowledging it. And sometimes, like, I don't want it necessarily to always identify me, but sometimes I do. Sometimes I like to be pointed out that I'm a veteran, and sometimes I don't. So just really understanding that is a very layered thing for women in general.
Yeah, and I was thinking a lot about your research that you did for your why am I losing my words?
Dissertation.
Dissertation. I'm like, it starts with a D and it's not thesis.
Okay, I
So
forget it. I try to like set it out there to the wind too sometimes because it was a lot of energy. So yes.
yeah, and in your dissertation, what I thought was like so interesting was even though women veterans had such different experience, like some were single parents, some were moms who like weren't gonna work, and then you had like high ranking who didn't have kids or lower like but there were so many like themes that you picked out that were similar. And
Yeah.
I remember when I left the military, I was like, I'm the only one who feels the way that I do. And then talking to a male veteran, I learned a lot of my feelings were some that he had as well. And then reading your dissertation, I was like, whoa, like all these things you're writing about are things that I felt.
Right.
And I thought because I didn't get a job, I stayed at home with my son and I was a military spouse. And so I thought my situation was so different. But then reading the dissertation, I was like, nope, I'm normal, just like
Yeah.
everybody else.
Yes, we're intertwined. I mean, that is the truth, right? And it's true. I mean, women, it doesn't matter, man, woman, every gender, every situation is unique when they leave the military. Every person's journey is unique when they leave the military. However, there are some intertwined themes that kind of happen to all of us, right? Whether it's an emotional, up and down journey we go through, whether it's, how we face the workforce, whether it's how we face our own identity, there are some intertwined themes that we kind of all at some point can absolutely connect to. And I think that's what you're saying here is like, wow, I connected to that. I thought you were writing my story. And that's really what I was aiming to do, was to really find those connections, and qualitative research. That's what you do. You find those meaningful units. You want to connect the dots with the themes. And then you want those eventually to turn into a larger focus of research, because that's where change happens. Although I only entered very small, in relation to the actual demographic, but once again, even though it was small, it was still representative of the experiences that they had. So it was very eye-opening for me too, because I went in there, as I tried to go in there as unbiased as I could. It's part of the process, especially when you're doing your dissertation, is like, okay, well, you have to figure out ways to, mitigate those things. But I did feel those words of the women. I mean, sometimes it made me even emotional, even reading it over and over again. I still get the chills. Starting to get the chills again as I talk about it, because it is a shared experience. I mean, we're all leaving. We all leave. One way or the other, we're leaving the military and we're making some sort of transition to the next thing that we do. This is for all veterans, and there is a range of emotions, no matter who you are, that are involved in that, whether it's excitement, scared, overwhelming, it just goes up and down. And sometimes, it stays one way or the other for a really long time. And sometimes we don't know how to get out of that feeling. And so connecting with others who understand our language, I mean, that is so powerful. And so if you're trying to run from it, like maybe I did for a few years, I tried to run from it because I was like, I'm just over this, it's a lot and I'm tired and like I want to just focus on my family. But the second I started connecting back to community, wow, like it changed my life. And that's, since I did that, I haven't stopped really advocating, working with, being a voice for this community, because truly these are my people. And I really love that we can kind of, connect, even though we're all so very different and our situations are so very different.
Yeah, and that's like one of the challenge. I think the tap class, when I was going through it, it was like, you're wrong because you're not transitioning the right way because there's only one way to transition. And so I feel like the transition tap course like for me when I went through it was so narrow. If you were on that path, it was great for you. But if you were like anywhere outside the spectrum, which most people are, then the class wasn't as helpful, or for me it made me feel like I was doing it wrong and gave me that like shame or guilt, like I'm not doing what I should be doing because I'm getting out and doing what's best for my family and I'm not thinking about like my career. And I've been interviewing a lot of veterans about leaving the military, and so they all have such different situations and circumstances, and so many of them are not doing the same career that they were doing in the military. And that was like the overwhelming theme, like, "You're a civil engineer, you have to be a civil engineer," and I'm like, "But I don't wanna do that anymore," and it's
Exactly.
interesting to interview veterans and hear like, "Oh, well, I was a med tech and now I'm doing, like, business executive coaching, and, like, I was doing engineering and now I'm doing this, consulting thing," and it's like so that for me was really eye-opening because I was like, TAP made it so it was, like, so streamlined, and if you came outside that lane, for me, I felt guilt and shame instead of encouragement or support.
Right. And that is one of the themes that I mentioned in my dissertation was that non-traditional transition. Because when you and I went through, I mean, it's constantly changing, based on the needs, the trends, although they're still quite behind the, trends of the workforce, to be honest. And it's really important to remember that TAP is a template. We've mentioned it before. It's a springboard to leverage yourself to spring from, right? So that's important to note. However, there is, very, linear paths they try to give you as far as like, well, you should either be entrepreneurship, you should go find a job or you should go to school. What about those who don't know? What about those who, that for me and you, that was not the case, right? I did the same thing. I stayed home with my family for a few years and I had no desire whatsoever at the time to create a resume, like at all, like zero. In fact, I was like, I don't like that's not even on my mind. I mean,
Right,
I started my doctorate the day that I left the day that I decided to leave the military. I started my doctorate. So my goal was going to be education, but I had no desire to work. And at that time, they were like, you still have to do a resume. It's still part of the curriculum. And so for me, it was like, whatever, and I signed off. I literally signed a piece of paper that's basically signed away all my TAP classes at the time because I was allowed to do that. And so, yes, people's journeys are unique once again and different, and everybody's family situation is unique and different, and everybody's work situation is unique and different. And yes, there are so many different opportunities that are being recognized now on how to translate military experience and training and education into civilian careers that are different from their technical occupational codes in the military, which is really exciting. And there's so much, and I'm actually doing that right now with my I have my own business on the side of this as well. And one of the people are the organizations I'm working with, called OSEG, Open Compliance and Ethics Group. And they are the founders basically of GRC and the learning pathways. And GRC stands for governance, risk, and compliance. And one of the things I love about working with them, because I'm working with them on their certifications and their accreditation for their certifications, is that there are so many translatable skills, no matter what occupational code you were in, no matter what you did in the military, all those extra collateral duties that you were given, like you were the voting officer and you were the, mail clerk and you were this and you were that. Guess what? All of that translates in the GRC space. All those non-technical skills you build translates into GRC roles, compliance, ethics, policy management, the list goes on and on. So I am excited to be able to connect not only the veteran stuff that I'm doing, but opportunities for learning pathways, opportunities for job pathways, because we're getting better at a larger community and as a society at understanding that non-technical skills and those things are really important in the workplace, because those can be, those technical things can be taught and can be
right.
learned and can be trained. It's really hard to train and coach and teach non-technical skills because those are gains based on experiences, and the military really forces you equips you rather with those kinds of opportunities to learn those skills. So There's a lot of opportunity out there, but sometimes that is overwhelming in itself, right? Who am I? Where do I work? Like, I have choices. That's a lot. So, these organizations, these resources that we're sharing, that I'm talking about too, are really there to help you understand and really work to, explore opportunity.
Yeah. Yeah, that's so good. And I have like so many more questions. Um, there's just like so much because I
Yeah.
feel like there's like so much that you gain from the military that you just do and you don't realize it's a skill. Like if someone is leaving the military at a certain rank, like they have skills of like leadership or or even like followership or managing a team, even if they're like in a low rank, listed. If they're not an E1, then they're probably to be managing, like if they're an E3 or E4, they're managing the E1s and the E2s, and they're and that's something that so many people don't get in the workforce because they're at the bottom and they don't get any management experience. But in the military, we all are leading, someone as we progress in rank. And so there's so much that we don't even realize is like a skill. And like,
Yes.
because we don't realize it's a skill, we don't put it on our resume and we don't talk about it. And then
Yes.
the community that's trying to hire us is like, well, you didn't talk about that. How was I supposed to know? And so there's so much that we need to
Yes.
learn. Yeah.
Yes. And there's a lot out there. There's a lot of organizations, and entities, large entities, even the government starting to recognize, the importance of skilling and, credentialing and competencies and all of those things. And so there's a lot of good things happening in that space right now where, hey, you know what, there is translatable stuff. There are, even if you, like you said, doesn't matter what occupational code, doesn't matter what rank you are, you have had some sort of shared experiences with other people that have really equipped you with skill sets that you might not recognize. Because you're right. If you, I challenge many of you who are like listening, I want you to go out there and think about civilian counterparts that you might know, whether it's your family members, whether it's your friends, your schoolmates, old schoolmates you went to, school with that did not go into the military. Look at the different kinds of outcomes that are happening for them and ask yourself why, one. And number two, ask yourself, have I had different experiences or different opportunities or gain different skills than they have along the way? And your answer is probably going to be yes. Many of my peers from school in particular, I've definitely been given opportunities along the way to gain management experience, leadership experience because of the military. That, like, I never would have had that opportunity. I was a young 21-year-old, brand new 21-year-old lieutenant. And at the time, my high school, you know, colleagues, and they weren't going through those same kinds of things that I was, and some of those things at the time I was also during the high tempo of deployment potential, right? And so then you're in a whole different state of mind. Your mindset's different, and the way that you respond is different, and the kind of training you get is different. We were being forced through simulated training that was literally talking about like you can make life or death decisions. And so that changes everything. So there are things built into those processes that we don't really give ourselves credit for. And so one of the things you can do, if you want to like step aside and say, all right, well, where can I start? Like figure it all out. There's a few things. One, there's a joint service transcript that all of you have. There is a VMET, verification military experience and training, that you all have, that every schooling that you go through, every training that you do, the military does an okay-ish sometimes job at helping you translate what that means in the outside. And sometimes it even gives you college credits for that. So that's one place to go. There's also a lot of organizations that are creating these different AI type of experiences, artificial intelligence type of experiences now, where you can actually like give your resume, answer some questions, self-identify some things, and they'll even help you translate some of those experiences into, skills and potential competencies and outcomes. So something to think about. Like there is a lot of ways to think about this process, than just, doing the same thing all your peers are doing. Because I cannot tell you how many times I've received the same resume with different things, different experiences, different names, because they're using the cookie cutter templates that they're given during the process or by the organizations that everybody's telling you to go to. Go to this one, go to this one. Guess what? That is a template. Do not use that. That is just a starting point. But create something for yourself that really showcases all those in betweens, because no hiring manager, no recruiter reads between the lines in resumes, because that's not part of it. It's not part of the process. So do yourself a favor and really translate that for them. And that's how you start.
Yeah, that's so good. And I want to get back to We Two Are Vets because I know you have like themes planned for the whole
Yeah.
year and lots of stuff that you're planning on doing. So can you give us a little bit of a sneak peek of what you have planned for 2023? We could even just
Yeah.
start with March because I know we're doing something together in March.
Well, instead of doing that real quick, I wanted to do one thing because I think
Okay.
it's really important. So I have 4 part-time employees now at We Two Are Vets, which is super exciting. And the reason I have that is because I have been able to secure a partnership with Purdue Global Campus, who has an amazing, amazing program where they allow their federal work study students, the ones who are qualified, to potentially get opportunities to work with a nonprofit. So most of the time through federal work study programs, if you go through colleges, you'll do something like maybe in-house for that college. Maybe you'll work at a bookstore. Maybe you'll be an assistant. Maybe you'll be a library, assistant, things like that. Well, this particular college allows the students to partner basically with nonprofits. And so I have 4 employees now that are working about, I think, a collective of probably 60 hours a week, which is amazing, on moving some of this stuff forward, because for a long time it was just me trying to like advocate out there with some amazing volunteers, but it became even overwhelming with the volunteers. So there are creative ways as a nonprofit out there that you can partner and collaborate with institutions and businesses, and this is one of them. So that's the first thing. The second is the theme that we have created for We Two Are Vets this year, and that's what is kind of moving forward. All of the different things that you mentioned is called self-advocacy. Self-advocacy being can really mean so many things, but basically means to us being able to communicate and speak up for what you need and what you want. And so along the way for this year, we're creating, every month has a theme with self-advocacy. And one of the big projects that all of the interns that are working with me on is basically we're doing the initial stages of a certificate program that will educate and allow women veterans and really all veterans to gain and demonstrate competency mastery for various self-advocacy skills and competencies. So we're in the research phase right now, but we've planned the entire process forward. So, and my goal is to not only give these women veterans an opportunity to learn in the future, but to give these interns real experience on how to really create these kinds of programs so that they can leave with those skills. And then we can then therefore create something that's not only for women veterans, but I would love to be able to really center it towards veterans and then women in general and the general population eventually. So really excited about that. And that's where all of the themes for the different months are coming from. So for example, this month we're talking about self-confidence and self-advocacy, because those two things kind of go hand in hand, right? So, and how do you build those confidence skills? So throughout the months, pay attention, follow whatever you want to do with We Two Are Vets, or even with just me on social media. We're getting better about we're still in the learning process basically, and the trying and the trialing process of getting our message out there, because there's a lot of ways to get your message out there. It's just like figuring out what's the best and where can you reach the most maximum people basically. So we're still working through that.
Yeah. It's always like a trial and error and seeing if it
Yes.
works and then trying something different if it doesn't. Yeah. I love the theme of self-advocacy. I think that's something that's so important for veterans to learn how to do, especially because in the military, you kind of are told not to self-advocate. Like, you are, but a lot of times you don't have a choice. Like, you're going here, and it's not like you can self-advocate to move to a new place unless, it's finding that balance of, like, what self-advocacy mean, and especially if you're in a limited environment like the military where you can still self-advocate, but you can also get shut down and not think that you
Yes.
need to self-advocate, and
Right.
so
And then
that's
suddenly, when you're transitioning, everybody expects you to know how to self advocate. They're like, why don't you know that? And you're like, well, because,
because it
you know,
was beaten out of me.
for many years,
Yeah,
potentially for some even like 20 plus years, 30 years, even a few years, being told in different ways and maybe not even spoken verbally, but there are different processes that happen that that you can't always speak up for what you
right.
need or want. I even had a conversation today with one of the workers that I have on my team who basically said that even the process, because he went through a medical board, and suddenly, especially if you're going through a medical board, you're definitely supposed to know how to self advocate for yourself. And yet, nobody really teaches you or coaches you through that process. And so, if you are not good or recognize that as important, you might miss out on some quality of life things that happen post transition. So, so important.
Yeah. Yeah, and the medical board results, like, are you find out and then it's like you're out, like, so quickly, so if you're not ready for that, it can be a real challenge, so that's so important.
Yeah, so many parts in that process require that self-advocacy, just even how you feel and how what hurts and your mental health and but the same can be said for, every veteran, every service member going through that process because it's true. Nobody's going, medical, we talked about this today too. Like even, medical doctors from in the military, they ask different questions than your civilian doctors do because civilians in general are more used to being able to kind of like talk about verbalize how they're feeling about something, whereas in the military the joke, but it's not really a joke, but it kind of is a joke, is like just drink water and take,
Right.
Tylenol or whatever,
Right.
and Motrin and suck it up. But suddenly you have to know how to do that when you leave. And so this is about a process that like everyone really should be encouraged to do, is to self advocate. It doesn't have to be like being super vocal about everything all the time, but it's about understanding yourself and what you need and when to speak up and when it's important to, and when maybe you can speak up in a passive way, even because sometimes even being passive, but knowing that you've had that message out there is just as powerful, if not even more powerful, with what you're trying to accomplish. So that's what this, the theme is about for We To Our Vets this year.
Yay! Well, I'm so excited. There's so much good stuff coming. So if you're not following We To Our Vets on social media, make sure that you are, and make sure you follow Destiny. And I think I put the links in the comments or in the description, but now that I'm thinking about it, I'm like, maybe I didn't. So I'll definitely put it in the comments so that people can find it. And thank you so much for being a guest. And
Yeah.
everyone, go check out her podcast episode when it comes out tomorrow.
Yeah. Nice to have me on here. No, I'm just kidding. It's nice to see you, Amanda, is what I meant to say. And I can't wait to see you in a couple of months.
Yay! Thank you.